pretty much what it says on the tin. Not musically or anything because I know shit all about music. No, I'm just here to tell you what I think of the storytelling. Specifically the endings and the various flavors of tragedy they give us, because yeah, I have a new obsession, and I will give you some subjective opinions on the music that are, again, not founded in any background of actual knowledge. Also, saw someone point this out recently, and it bears repeating. Fellow TMA fans who got into the Mechs through TMA, let's all keep in mind that Johnny isn't the writer of the mechanisms. That doesn't have anything specific to do with this video, but just let's all keep that in mind because implying that he is just really fucking rude. Anyway, onto the actual point of this video, let's start with who do I think got the best on-album ending, yes, that distinction is important, and who I think got the worst. Ulysses got the best ending, arguably the only good ending the mechanisms have ever given us, but I'll get back to that. Arthur got the worst. Just in general, but if you take into account the all is connected theory, which I also will get back to later, he got the worst ending by a landslide. Now, on with the albums. First up, Once Upon a Time in Space, aka the album that has most of my favorite songs. Not that the other albums are bad, Once Upon a Time in Space just has so many absolute gems, and also... Take a order in gently, Nastya, let's see what these roses can do! So I'm admittedly a little bit biased. On the whole, this album ends very tragically, but it's the kind of tragedy I'm particularly fond of. The kind where ultimately the characters succeeded. King Cole is dead, the people are freed, the war is over. It's just that almost everyone died, and the sole survivor lost everything, and only accomplished her personal goal for a few brief moments before it was torn from her again. But despite hitting all of the beats for my favorite kind of tragedy, it's not my favorite end to a Mechs album. I think it suffers most in that it is the shortest of the lot. It has only half as much time as the others to deliver its story, and it suffers a little on the emotional attachment due to that. And do note, I'm writing all of my initial observations from the perspective of someone who has not read the fiction on the Mechs website, quite intentionally, because a casual listener isn't likely to go digging through the website for the full story. So they're liable to feel how I felt when I first listened to the album, like they just listened to the only time the Mechs managed to not land how they went about the death of a queer character. Because there's just something about Rose Red's death on the album that seems to strike a sour note. I wonder what that could be. Could it be because something about the ending just feels a little off? Could it be because so many times we have lesbian couples separated from each other by death and violence? Could it be because if you read the fiction on the website, you'd know that Briar Rose has all the memories and feelings of the original Rose Red, and that she and Cinders reunited after the battle, but if you just listen to the album, you don't know shit about any of that. I honestly don't know whether to class this as unburying your gays, or whether Briar's existence cancels out the original Rose's death entirely from a trope perspective, but in the end that the album doesn't tell you about, Cinders and Rose are both alive technically, massively traumatized and probably with only a few years, maybe a couple decades if you're feeling generous, left together given Cinders has aged while Rose has not, but they are together. So album end, not my favorite. Actual story end? Fucking love it, gotta say. It's not a perfect storybook ending, there's a lot the characters still need to contend with. It's not a happy ending, no matter how much Johnny insists it is. Cinders and Briar are going to have to navigate how they deal with each other, if they can even be in a relationship or not, how to deal with all of their trauma, all while spending the rest of their lives in hiding. Honestly, it's probably the most hopeful ending the Mechs have ever given us. But that's only if you bother to go digging through the website. Moving on to Ulysses Dies at Dawn. Overall, my least favorite of the four, again, not because I dislike it, just because it didn't grip me quite like any of the others. Once Upon a Time in Space wins out on pure class and its fairy tales retold, which I'm always a sucker for. High Noon over Camelot gave us Blood and Whiskey and brought in the tune for By the Rising of the Moon, and it's an Arthurian retelling. What more can I say? And then the Bifrost Incident gave me Red Signal and pretty much all of Ragnarök, but especially 1 and 2, which scratched an itch I truly did not know I needed scratched, all while being Norse myth and Lovecraftian horror, on a train, in space, so there's just nothing that can hold a candle to that, really. When put up against all of that, Ulysses Dies at Dawn is just a tad underwhelming for me. Someone who, while he does appreciate Greek myth, has never been the biggest fan, and who doesn't really click with the noir feel either. I mean, don't get me wrong, Undead Blues fucking rules, and Elysian Fields will make me cry, but when you have 4 albums to analyze and rank, one of them is going to end up lost just by process of elimination. That ending, though? Oh, that ending. Absolutely shit for most of the characters, but dear gods do I love it. Ironically being my least favorite album musically, it's my favorite album for its ending, flipping the last one on its head completely. Again, we have one survivor, Daedalus, but he's an ass, so I won't waste my breath on him. No, the person I want to focus on here is Ulysses, the main character. Remember how I said I think they got the only good end the Mechs have ever given us? Well, on album ending anyhow. And it's not like Briar and Cinders got a particularly good ending, just one with some hope for future happiness. Anyway, I'm gonna expand on that now. Ulysses' life is undoubtedly one filled with tragedy, but their death? That is beautiful and peaceful as much as getting shot by your own refracted laser blast can be peaceful anyhow, and most importantly, real. Unlike literally everyone else in the city save only Penelope, they get to die a natural death. They don't get absorbed into the hellish existence that is the Acheron. They get to end. They get to lie down under the last real oak tree and die as the dawning light seeps in through the cracks. And that's really, truly their end. A natural death, something everyone else in the city can only dream of. Ulysses dies at dawn, and it's beautiful. Heartbreaking, certainly, but oh so achingly beautiful. Their death is a victory, and a well-deserved rest. It's a tragedy in and of itself that the only peace in their life comes to them in death, but it's not something that can be torn from them. Their last, and arguably only true victory, is their death, is that it's real and permanent, and I love it so much. Which brings us to High Noon over Camelot. The Arthurian space western I never knew I needed, which gave me the polyamorous Arthur, Guinevere, and Lancelot I very much knew I needed, and also the trans Mordred I never even knew I wanted. Lots of good things on this album, basically. The ending, well, if we're ranking things, it's second to last in my books. It's certainly very tragic, ending with an entire planet-sized space station piloted into the sun by a man who only ever wanted peace, again with one sole survivor. What's really interesting to me is the Mech's choice to flip the usual ending for Arthur on its head, though. He's the last sole survivor of Forked Galfridian. Mordred killed Lancelot and Guinevere but spared Arthur's life, sending him out in a life pod before he drove the station into the sun. But that's straying away from the actual album itself and into the patterns and plot beats usually found in Arthurian retellings in general, so I'll just leave that there. Arthur, as previously said, got the worst ending out of anyone. I could possibly be convinced that Loki and Sigyn had it worse, but actually no, not really, because as we all know,
at least they can die together.
Arthur, on the other hand, is completely alone. He's lost his lovers at the hand of his own son, who he did not even know was his son until that very moment, and who he then also proceeds to lose, along with having to watch the world he tried so hard to save plunge into the sun. Again, at the hands of his own son, who he'd thought was dead this entire time. That, on its own, would be tragedy enough. But then comes the everything is connected theory, and mind you, this is only a theory, but I like it and believe it enough to throw it in here anyway. It proposes a timeline that goes a little bit like so. The Bifrost Incident happens first, and the breakdown in communication following it leads directly to the events of High Noon over Camelot. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the events of Ulysses Dies at Dawn are unfolding, and the city chugs along only to eventually be destroyed by ashes. Arthur, in his life pod, crashes down in what used to be the city, and he discovers not the immortality the Olympians had, but the scraps of what used to be the Acheron. He doesn't think to use it, of course not, but he sees people who need help and a leader, and he helps, and he leads, and he gets crowned king, fulfilling Mordred's final words to him. But then he starts to falter under the weight of his years. He wasn't exactly young at the end of High Noon over Camelot, and time takes its toll. So he turns to that infernal science he discovered when he first crashed here, and he uses it to extend his life. And it's fine, for a time. Until it's not. Until he's not someone anyone who knew him as Arthur would recognize. Until he's been twisted and warped beyond belief, and there's a rebellion on his doorstep, and he's destroyed more lives than can be counted. Because the minds that come out of the Acheron don't come back right. And the only name he's ever carried that truly means anything is Cole. Some things in this theory's favor, regarding Arthur being Cole specifically, is the mention in Old King Cole of Cole having something to forgive which he never will, which would make a whole lot of sense if he is Arthur. It also makes mention to a tale he tells to those brought before him, which we never get any clarification on. Could be anything. Could be the Tale of Camelot. What really seals the deal for me, though, is something this theory didn't even have to bring to my attention. I noticed it the first time I listened to Blood and Whiskey, and that is this.
Lancelot, you're a fool to drink your bottle dry. Whiskey kills your fear, and you want to keep that near.
No, my dear doctor. Pain and fear are important tools for survival. A good soldier should be able to overcome them, but they must be there.
Themes are a thing, certainly, but Arthur and Cole are the only characters to ever voice this particular opinion. So, I think the theory has some merit. And now, finally, moving on to the Bifrost Incident. Liufrasir Edda has a pretty downer ending, as endings go. They're fleeing for their life, their planet, and all the 9 realms wiped out by Lovecraftian horrors, their only hope to flee far and fast enough to find somewhere said horrors haven't yet touched. Which, when dealing with Lovecraftian horrors is pretty much your best play. Just turn tail and run and hope they don't take note of you or pass near enough to upend your life by accident. Make yourself insignificant in the eyes of the cosmos, and you might be fine. But overall chances are actually pretty high they'll find some backwater planet to spend the rest of their life on. Severely traumatized, certainly, but alive and with a possibility of rebuilding some kind of life. Now, the real tragic ending of this album belongs to Loki and Sigyn. They were separated by Loki's supposed execution, Sigyn thinking Loki was dead, Loki unable to remember her past, only to be reunited here on this abomination train when it is far, far too late. The album tells us that at least they can die together, but really their ending is both better and worse than that. Because first they have to live together, for as long as they possibly can, to delay the disaster that awaits the 9 realms once the train reaches its destination. And it's true, they have each other, but in a beautifully painful parallel to the myth it is based on, Sigyn has to stand there letting the steady drip, drip, drip of her wife's blood power the train, knowing that once it is gone, there is no more delaying it, and they will arrive. And once Loki is dead, Sigyn will very soon be too, because the train will arrive, and crash, and kill her. They did manage to delay it, for 80 years, but not forever. And we have no clear idea of how long those 80 years were inside the wormhole. So, there's that. Their ending is one of self-sacrifice to give whatever friends and family they have left outside the train as much time as they can before it all ends. And I love it almost enough to place it level with Ulysses' ending, though for obviously different reasons. But nah, Ulysses still wins out. Cinders and Briar might have had everyone beat had the album actually included their ending, but it didn't, so here we are. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, consider liking it. I will be back here Thursday after next. Bye!